Hi, welcome to Louisville Trades. Today we're going to be making some Stardust bottles and talking about Supernovas. So here I'm taking these small bottles, and I've got a variety of ones that I've collected over the years. What you need for this project is some small bottles with or without jewelry attachments. You need some silica carbide, which I found this one on Amazon. I'll put the link below. Some glitter, if you would like that, and various beads or adornments, and any jewelry hardware that you need. So you pour the silica carbide in like this. I usually use a post-it note that I've either formed into a funnel or just folded in half. You put the silica carbide in, any additional things you would like. And then now's the time to add the glitter if you want. I use this really cool holographic flaky glitter, usually. This one has more of a bluish tint to it. Seal it up, and then you can shake it a little bit to get the glitter and the silica carbide to mix. The silica carbide is fairly sparkly on its own. things that you also want to do, especially with these, if you're planning on hanging them by the top of the bottle, especially where the cork is, you want to glue this cork in so it doesn't budge. I'm using E6000 for this with an attachment that So while we let the glue dry, let's learn a little bit about supernovas. Stars are some of the most amazing things in the universe, and one of the most awesome things about them is how they die. Now, I'm not talking about the little dinky ones that are around the size of our sun or are around or smaller than that. What I'm talking about are the big boys, the monsters of the galaxy, the ones that are more than 8 times the mass of our sun. And just to kind of give you an idea of how big the mass of the sun is, out of the entire solar system, that means Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, all of the inner planets, all of the asteroids, all of the gas that's around, the sun makes up 99.86% of it. So our solar system is almost entirely sun. So imagine that times 8. That's the size that you need to get us started to go supernova. These supernova are gigantic, and they're bright enough that we can see them from very, very far away, almost the entire length of the universe if you have a good enough telescope. So you'll hear a lot of people say that the sun is average. If you were to take an image like this, comparing the stars, yeah, kinda. It's right there in the middle. But up to 85% of stars are smaller than the sun and fit into the red dwarf category. But only 5 to 15% are larger than the sun, and significantly larger at that. So the sun isn't about the top 15% of stars. It's amazing. So our sun is really not all that dinky. Once you get up to these huge sizes that are much bigger than the sun, let's say a star 20 times the mass of the sun, that's sun burning for maybe 10 million years. But once it's done burning hydrogen, which most stars are made of, it goes through all that hydrogen. Then the core collapses, compresses in on itself, and heats up to the point that it can start fusing helium. So the star starts fusing helium, and it burns through its helium in about 1 million years. And then it burns carbon. It goes through its carbon in 1,000 years. It can burn through its neon in 1 year. It can burn through its oxygen in a few months. And one of the most amazing things I've ever learned, it burns through its silicon in one day, 24 hours. Now, you might be wondering what's next after silicon. It is a star killer, and you have it in your house. It's iron. Once the core starts trying to fuse silicon to iron, it completely collapses. Up until this point, fusion has put out more energy than it's taken to produce. So there's been radiation pressure. At this point, that pressure is gone. These outer layers come slamming down on the core. It's not a fall. It is a gravitational collapse, and it's catastrophic. At the same time, the core produces neutrinos. So the thing about neutrinos is neutrinos do not like to interact with regular matter. They do, but it's very, very rare, to the point that if you have a light year's worth of lead, you could shoot a beam of neutrinos, and 50% of them will come out on the other side. That's 6 trillion miles, completely unscathed. The neutrinos that the star's core produces, there's so many of them. All this hydrogen and outer layers are falling inward. Don't just slow down. They stop dead in their tracks, turns around, and explodes outwards. This rips the star to pieces, and it turns into a supernova remnant, sometimes called a nebula. Now, you might be wondering what happens to the star after this. The core of it is still there, but it depends on exactly how big that core is, on whether it turns into a neutron star or a black hole, which is something we'll get into another time. So what's the connection between supernovas and these? Well, a good chunk of the solid matter of stardust that's out there, and we find these in meteorites all the time. They're called pre-solar grains, which are little grains of stuff that was actually here before the sun was even a thing. And a lot of those are silica carbide, which is what this black stuff is. This is quite literally stardust. Don't forget to like and subscribe.